Welcome, skeptics and truth seekers, to Schoolhouse Crock, the podcast that fearlessly exposes the real deal behind public education in the state of Colorado. I'm your host, Stacy Castile, and on this show, we're not here to sugarcoat. We are here to unveil the truth, challenge the norms, and unpack the crock of you-know-what that often goes unnoticed in the realm of education. On this episode, I have Amber Cecil with me, and we will be discussing the Congressional District 8 State Board of Education candidate Rhonda Solis and who has endorsed her. We thought it was important to bring this to everybody's attention as we get ready for the November election as a way for people to do their own research behind the candidates. Although I don't think that a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are actually Rhonda Solis supporters, this is just going to be some more of talking points and things for you to use as you go out. And you may have friends, family, strangers that you meet on the street that are supporting Rhonda Solis, and talking points as to why that's probably not the best candidate to represent us. Thank you so much for joining us today, Amber.
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I thought that we could just give a little bit of background on what we did and how we found this information. So one of the things that I did was I looked up Rhonda Solis's campaign Facebook page, and one of the things that we've noticed throughout our experience in the political realm is that the Democrats rely heavily on endorsement. This is something that we saw during the school board campaign that I was in. And now we are seeing it too with the general election coming up this November. We took some of the endorsements from her Facebook page and just started to dig a little bit deeper into who these people are, who these groups are, what they support, to try and figure out what some of their values are. What did you do, Amber?
I went directly to her actual candidate website, which is rhonda4coloradokids.com, and it's the endorsements page on there. So you can actually take a look at them. There's links to all of the groups on there, so you can explore the groups directly. I just wanted to explore them a little bit further and see sort of what the values of these groups are, to understand them a little bit better, to see maybe who else they endorse, and even look into the Secretary of State and see some of the things that they have funded or the electioneering that they have done to oppose or to support a candidate or a ballot initiative.
Awesome. One of the first ones that I dived into, because it really caught my eye, was the Center for Free Thought and Equality PAC. I had never heard of them. Had you ever heard of them before, Amber?
Nope, sure haven't.
According to their website, and I will include that link in the notes, they are a advocacy and political arm of the American Humanist Association. Now, I know that humanist is kind of a newer word, right? But it's people who claim to find value in themselves and each other and respect their fellow human beings. They believe in bringing shape and meaning to their own lives. So these are people that are very self-centered and focused. One of their missions is to advocate for issues the humanist and atheist community cares about, like separation of church and state, protecting civil liberties, and advancing progressive policies. Does that sound like somebody that aligns with our views and that somebody we want involved with our children's education?
Oh, that sounds like secular humanism to me.
It definitely does. Another thing that they have on their website is a scorecard of congressional sessions. And some of the bills that they have supported at the congressional level is H.R. 7910, which is called Protecting Our Kids, which sounds great, but deep down, it's actually a firearm ban. Then there is also H.R. 1280, which the name says it all, honestly. It's the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So basically, it just puts more regulations on our law enforcement officers, preventing them to be able to do their jobs. The website also talks about some of the elected officials that they support at the state levels. And so for the state of Colorado, They support Judy Ambiel. Ambiel, I'm sorry, I'm not very good at saying names, from House District 49, Karen McCormick from House District 11, Jennifer Partini from House District 19, Brianna Tatone from House District 27, and Stephanie Vigil from House District 16. And in a previous episode, I actually talk about how extreme Stephanie Vigil is. So this organization does not align with any conservative views at all. Would you agree, Amber?
Absolutely would agree. One of the ones that really stuck out to me when I just kind of surfing the endorsements page was Planned Parenthood. I thought,
oh, wow.
Well, that's an interesting thing for Planned Parenthood, and it's Planned Parenthood Votes Colorado. And I thought, well, that's an interesting thing for a board of education to have a Planned Parenthood endorsement. Now, I could understand it more so in maybe a senator or a congressional type of race, just because you would have more influence when it comes to those types of matters like abortion and things like that. You and I both know that the Department of Education promotes with the sex education curriculum that they use, it comes from Planned Parenthood. That's actually who really wrote it and pushed it through. Now, I could question a couple of things. One, again, that, they have their hand in the curriculum that is pushed across Colorado to our kids. The other thing that would make me consider it is that maybe she has plans for a bigger run at some point, that this is just a stepping stone.
I do think that that's just a little alarming because we do know how extreme Rhonda can be. I mean, some of the things that she did while she was on the school board for Greeley-Evans District 6 was in August of 2021, as you may remember, the COVID vaccine had come out as quote unquote FDA approved for children 14 and up. And at that time, the Greeley-Evans School District had actually decided to start the school year without masking the children. But then shortly after that decision, the school district ended up going back on that and masking children from kindergarten through 8th grade, so 5 to 13-year-olds. And Rhonda was very instrumental in pushing for that.
She did some ads. I remember some things that came out, and I don't remember if it was during her campaign or if it was prior to that, but definitely her being very pro-vaccine and very pro-mask.
Another video that I think we both watched was her 2022 caucus video for her original State Board of Education run. Now, as most people know, that the State Board of Education seats are actually for 6 years, but because Congressional District 8 was created in 2020 and it was a new seat, they actually only had a 2-year term, and then we vote again. In her 2022 caucus video, she talks about how she wants to work on social emotional aspects of children, teachers, and staff to get them the help that they need. She also wants to provide equity and access because she says you, quote, can't have equity if you don't ask those access questions. What does that even mean? What access questions are you asking?
Access questions. That's just interesting. I'm sure that feeds a lot into those surveys and things that are pushed out across the schools.
They're creating their own adjectives just to make them sound better. They're probably asking some type of racist questions.
Well, we've seen those surveys. They're really racist questions.
100%. 100%. Some of the things that I also found was endorsements from state house reps here in the state of Colorado. There is Rep. Chris DeGroy Kennedy. There is House Rep. Shannon Bird, House Rep. Ginny Wilford, House Rep. Manny Rutino. I don't know why I can't say these names. He was actually just appointed in October of 2023. So when I get into some of their voting history, his is not as open just because he's only been in for a couple of months.
Relatively new.
And then House Rep. Lorena Garcia. I wanted to see how these people were voting because I think it's very telling of a candidate, especially when candidates are using endorsements so heavily as what Rhonda Solis is. Who endorses you and what they stand for says a lot about you as a person and what you stand for. So I took a handful of important bills that I thought had come through recently. Like in 2023, we had House Bill 23-109, which was women's rights in athletics, basically safeguarding our girls athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And Ginny Wilford had voted to postpone indefinitely that bill. And that bill died. Another example would be House Bill 23-1135, penalty for indecent exposure in views of minors. And then doubling that up with House Bill 24-1092, which would impose a minimum sentence on crimes against prostituted children. Specifically, Rep. Kennedy, Rep. Wilford, and Rep. Garcia voted against the penalty of indecent exposure in views of minors. And then Rep. Wilford and Rep. Nell voted to postpone the minimum sentence crimes against prostituted children indefinitely.
Oh.
They aren't fighting to protect our children from sexual crimes.
Well, it's sort of like you are guilty by association. I mean, you are who you hang out with, right?
Yes.
Whoever you are surrounding yourself with. So if you're surrounding yourself with people who are courting pedophiles, essentially what you're doing, and you're not really looking into someone's record and you're just blindly accepting somebody's endorsement just because they have a D behind their name.
One of the other bills that I looked into was Senate Bill 23-029, which is disproportionate discipline in public schools. So they're basically saying that non-white students are disciplined in public schools at a higher rate than white children are. And so they were wanting to stop that, not stop the behavior, not stop the actions that were calling for the discipline, but the discipline in public schools. And a majority of the reps, like Rep. Byrd, Rep. Wilford, and Rep. Garcia, were supporting that.
One of Rhonda's priorities on her website is spoken equity.
Two of the bills that were presented this session, which was House Bill 24-1017 and House Bill 24-1170, those ones both have stuff to do with affirming gender. So House Bill 24-1017 is a Bill of Rights for foster youth, in which it requires the foster parents to affirm a child's gender. And then House Bill 24-1170 is the Rights for Youth Division of Youth Service Facilities. So essentially kids who are in human services care, whether it's like in a detention center, in a group home, but that one forces the state to provide access to gender affirming care to those children. Again, all of these reps supported those bills.
I've looked into some of the verbiage and really some of the penalties for not affirming and not allowing name changes, those types of things. They really put a lot of penalty on the parties that do not do it. You and I are familiar with foster care and what that sort of looks like. And what does that look like for a Christian household? How do we take on a foster child that maybe is identifying as trans? How do we have that situation in our home and still manage to hold our faith principles? And these types of bills really go against that and actually put it to where we can be fined or penalized or even serve jail time if we affirm and provide gender affirming care to the child.
Yeah, exactly.
In the digging, I found quite a few endorsements on a prior endorsement. Obviously, some of these have updated since she has re-announced that she's going to do another run, but it was the Working Families Party. And if you go to their website, they basically are saying that they believe that the richest people on earth and the political insiders who serve them have rigged the rules of the economy and our democracy to grab up wealth and power for themselves. So because of this, they've defunded schools and undermined community services and stripped working people of the right to organize into unions, and then blame poor people or people of different races or different places, aiming to divide and distract us from what we all have in common. That's directly from them. So this group seems very extreme in a lot of ways. I think calling it the Working Families Party, it makes it seem like it's something that it isn't. They want to recruit and train people, empower candidates to run on a ballot and get them to win. And I can appreciate groups like that who want to do that, but I don't think it's necessarily transparent in what it is they're actually doing.
Oh, it's definitely misleading.
Yeah. One of the other ones that I have is the Invest Her group, and it's Reimagining Politics. Invest Her is a nonpartisan political organization aimed at achieving equal representation for pro-choice women in political office.
Pro-choice specifically?
Pro specifically. And this is one that is a current endorsement for Rhonda. And again, it's that pro choice. And I think that that's an odd thing to have as a Department of Education candidate. And I know that she's running on the Democratic platform, and that is one of the pieces that run on. Some of the people that they have endorsed are Amanda Gonzalez, Brianna Titone, who we do know is a trans woman, Elizabeth Epp, Jenny Wilfer, Wanda James, Ruby Dixon, so that's some of the company that's being kept with Rhonda. The other thing that I did notice when I looked at Tracer was that it definitely is the unions, the education unions, the teachers unions from the majority of the counties that CD8 crosses. They all gave her money. And we know that the teachers unions are organizations that they always say they're nonpartisan, but we know better. We couldn't get a teachers union to support a conservative candidate if we wanted them to.
Oh my gosh, yeah, never.
So they definitely all were funding her and putting in pretty good lumps of some cash in there. This information is out there. Feel free to check it out on your own. We're not saying that we don't like transgender or LGBTQ plus persons. We're just saying that this is something that they're definitely pushing. We're seeing it being pushed on our kids, and it's just something that needs to stop.
Well, and those stances, like what you'd said earlier for a senator or congressman, that's a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah, it seems more relevant for Planned Parenthood to endorse someone who's running for Congress or for Senate. But for someone who is running for a Department of Education, it just seems a little off to me. And for this group that is specifically pro-choice women. And I thought that was a very odd thing for that to be an endorsement on her website.
Agreed. It's like Amber said, all of this information is available online. You could go to Tracer to find out who is donated to her. That's a really good way to start seeing who's behind the money. Although Rhonda Solis is probably too extreme for a majority of the audience of this podcast, never fear. We do have somebody coming in to run for us that has conservative views. I am hoping to get her on here to interview her here soon. Her name is Yasmin Navarro. She is a substitute teacher. She is a mother. She is a wife of a former Marine, and she is fighting in the classroom for us right now, and she is willing to take the fight to the next level with the State Board of Education. We do have a conservative that we need you guys all to get behind and support. You can find her website and you can sign up to volunteer. You can contact her and ask questions, and you can donate to her. And I highly suggest everybody goes and does all three of those things because she needs our help. She needs our support. That is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Amber, for joining me today and having this conversation and helping me tackle this research. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you guys join us next week. Thank you so much. Bye.